Live. Alright. Let's get some music going. Is it working? Yeah, okay. Alright, so now I gotta prepare to let people know I'm streaming. Sorry if there's flickering. Let me send that. What a terrible time for my computer to lag. But that happens. So I think I'm getting more... Oh, did the post not work? Okay, I see myself live. Uh-oh. It did not work. Oh boy. Am I not able to do this? Oh, it just takes a while. Okay. Oh, geez, only a minute left. Okay. Yeah, so apologies for the dead air in the beginning, but that's kind of what this countdown timer is for, right? I like to think so. Okay. Close this program. Close this. Close that. Leave that open. Not much time left. Alright. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. That's what I get. I thought I had everything, but I forgot to go over my checklist. And there's one small piece of the puzzle that was missing. Okay. Yeah. Alright, I'm live. And what am I missing? Huh. I'm missing my spiel. Time for my spiel. So this is Vtutoring live. If you want to. And the whole point is, once again, if anyone needs tutoring, hopefully with math homework, then I should be able to help you out. About 2 weeks ago was my first student who was able to help me out. Oh, no. Flickering again. Okay, I think I fixed it. Was my first student who I was able to help out, and we went over trigonometry and unit circles. It went well. It went well. It was, you know, first time I've done that in a long time. So I think it went as well as it could have. Now, again, if anyone needs help with any kind of math, I would like to try to help. Hopefully, not derivatives. Ugh, derivatives. But if you need it, I'll try to remember. And until then, of course, I'm just going to go over the lesson plan. Now, last week's lesson plan was about money math, but I got hung up. I got stuck. I got stuck talking about a buy now pay later, trying to come up with a concise formula to explain the theoretical situation, when really, again, you don't really need formulas for something like that, because in that specific example with that time frame, pay period, it might have worked, it might not have worked, but no one really needs a formula, when really the important thing is just to kind of explain that, in a general basic math sense, why it's a bad idea. So this money math series, which I have an archive on YouTube. You don't have to check it out. I have shorts that just kind of like summarize it, so that's nice and easy. But the archive would go over all the different kinds of money math. And by money math, I mean like basic, generic financial advice that someone like me, who is not a financial advisor, could kind of share and talk about, and use basic mathematics or algebra to kind of explain why some things are good, why some things are bad. And that's kind of how it goes. Now, let me check my rules. Uh-oh. Here we go. So today is a continuation of that series, and I think last week we talked about almost exclusively buy now, pay later, just because I was trying to create a formula. I've learned my lesson, so you know, I think I kind of get an idea of what not to do. And this time I'll just kind of go over the other subjects. So here I'm going to talk about things that are interesting but not interest. INTEREST. And the reason why I want to specifically say these are not interest is that I think some people talk about the power of compound interest and how things can ball out of control. About, 3-4 weeks ago is when I kind of used more of a generic kind of visual aid to explain that process. These things are not exactly parabolic, where interest can go out of control, or it can work in your favor in a really strong way. But they do help or hurt. Again, it's when talking about finances, there's a good and there's a bad way to use it, right? Think of like any other tool, like a hammer, right? You can use a hammer on a nail, which is alright, and that's a good way to do it. But if you use a hammer like Maxwell did with a silver hammer, that's a bad way to do it. Don't do that. So what we're going to talk about here is leverage. And leverage is what some people like to call politely a financial instrument. That's one way to call it. It's basically where you are doing some kind of thing with money, usually trading stocks, sometimes trading foreign currencies. It's some kind of trading mechanism where you're trading your money to buy something else. So, and usually something that's immaterial, right? Through a market exchange. So not like, let's say, buying groceries. It's not like it's kind of like a loan, but I'll explain how it's not quite a loan. But what it is we're using these tool to trade for an immaterial good that has value that can shift. So let's say, for example, let's buy a stock market, right? And how should I represent a stock? I'll just write the word stock. So as an item is publicly traded in the stock market, it can go any which way, right? I mean, it can't exactly go like this because it never kind of goes backwards. So let me try to redraw that. It can go like this. Whee! And depending on how much money you have can change the amount of profit you can or cannot make in this example. So let's say, for example, you are trying to buy something that on average has a value of $1, but it can go up to, let's say, $2. And let's say it can crash all the way down to 1 cent. I think that's kind of nice and simple. And so depending on the time in which you buy it can change the value, right? And let's just do a nice easy Monday. Whoops, that's a W. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. And normally when you buy and sell something, you you want to buy low and sell high, right? If you knew that this was going to happen for every week in perpetuity, then you'd say, oh wow, if I buy this thing for 1 penny, or 10 cents, sorry, and I sell it for $2, then I buy it again for 10 cents and sell it for $2 again over and over and over again, you can really increase the amount of money that you make. You could say, okay, I'll buy this thing for... Now again, this is kind of a really basic, idealistic scenario, right? You buy 100 of these things at 10 cents for $10. And then you sell 100 at $2. And then, wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, so you buy 100 at 10 cents for $10, and then you sell the 100 things, the stock, that thing, at $2, then you now have $200. Wow, how great is that? You somehow are a market guru that bought stocks for $10 and you turn it into $200 a day, and you could repeat this process and just kind of increasing it by, what is that, like a 200% increase? Yeah. Wait, no, more than that. 2,000%. Yeah, 100% is like only doubling it. So then, oh no, it'd be like 1,000% increase. Or would it be 2? I think 1,000. Nope, 2,000. Anyways, 2,000% increase. That's a lot of value. Awesome. Hey, good for you. Now what leverage can do is it can allow you to, if you have maybe credit, if you have credibility, if you know the right people sometimes, but generally it's a system in which you agree to say, hey, instead of just playing with $10, because I can only use $10 at a time, could I kind of borrow money, all right? And I'll be on the hook for the amount that I borrow. So if you say, I only have $10, but then through a series of maybe checks, they can allow you to borrow up to not just $10, but $1,000. Wow. Now the reason why they're able to give you so much is because they say, hey, even if this thing goes down to $0, even if this thing goes to $1 million, it doesn't matter, as long as we just get our $10,000 back, that, or I guess technically $990. As long as we get that back, maybe with a bit of interest, then we're good, right? So leverage is the system in which you can borrow money for the sake of trading it, so that you could increase the amount of money that you have. Sounds pretty good, right? Hey, what could possibly go wrong? Unfortunately, a lot can go wrong, and it can go wrong really bad. And the example is, let's say, for example, you're not a market guru, right? You play, well, no, people who play blackjack seriously, I think, are pretty smart with cards. Let's say you are just unlucky. Well, I shouldn't say you're just unlucky. Let's say you're the average person. and you don't have all this intimate stock knowledge, and you don't have insider trading information. You're just gonna take a chance, right? And you think, hey, this leverage thing doesn't sound so bad. So you say, I only have $10. They give you a loan for $990, and now you have 1,000 to play with. Cool. And you think, well, then this is really easy. I know that here on Sunday, today, well, in this example, we'll pretend it's Sunday, right? Then I will buy this same stock, and it will absolutely go up by next Monday, because it alternates, it wiggles every time, right? There's no way this can possibly fail. I'll just take out this leverage for $1,000. Thank you very much. And then I'll just kind of do this trade and give it a shot. Maybe it will work. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to things like markets and stocks, that's mostly just kind of a guess. There might be some long proven truths, particularly in relation to, like, you know, 30-year, 50-year periods where you invest into something that is diversified. There's also some kind of weirdly superstitious but generally proven things about, like, the moon cycles. Again, not financial advice, just observations. But what can happen is that this thing can be completely irrational. And so then by Monday, instead of going up, instead of following the pattern it maybe has for like 10, 15, 30 years, it just goes down. And it crashes. Not even to a penny. And not even to a fraction of a penny. A fraction of a fraction of a penny. This thing is now valuated at 0.0000001 cents. Which is, you know, essentially equal to $0. For all intents and purposes. So, then what happens is now your $1,000 leveraged loan goes straight to zero. But you're also on the hook for this not thousand. But not only did you lose your $10, you also are on the hook for this $990. So then you have $0, and you're in the red, which means, you know, at a loss of $990 because you have to pay this back. It's kind of like a loan. And you think, okay, well, hey, it's not so bad. It's just one day. Well, again, this depends, right? Sometimes for leverage, they say if it goes past a certain point, if you lose a certain amount of money, then they force you to sell at maybe 10 cents, or they force you to sell at like a penny, or they force you to sell at half a penny. Usually they have those kind of protections in place to liquidate, so that way even if they say, okay, you know, maybe instead of paying us $990, we're able to salvage half of that, so you lose everything, but then you still are on the hook for maybe what will that be? Let's just say $500. So you still lost that, and you still have nothing because they sold all your positions. That could be bad, right? That's if you have oh shoot, I forgot the terms, but this is when you get liquidated, and that's, I think it's called a stopgap. It's where they say, okay, once it reaches a certain point, you have to sell it, right? Fine. A lot of these generally have that, these terms and conditions. Now let's say, for example, if you were somehow fortunate and you got a thing that says, okay, no, you can hold on to it indefinitely, right? They don't have a liquidation thing. They don't have limits. Then you say, okay, well, what if I just wait until the next day? Now again, this is unrealistic, but if you wait until the next day, then maybe it keeps dropping lower and lower and lower, and it becomes more and more and more closer to zero for days, weeks, months, years on end. And then you just are down to $0 and you have nothing to show. Except for this big fat loan you gotta pay. And that is where leverage can be bad. But usually they don't let it kind of like stall out that much. They would say, okay, once it reaches a certain point, we're just gonna sell everything, you're gonna have no stock, you're gonna have no money, and now you're gonna owe us a lot of money. That's kind of how this happens. Now again, this is a thing that could happen. It could also go the other way, right? Or maybe you make a ton of money. But generally this is a big concern, a big enough risk, which is why people don't choose to do this. It's almost like, you know, making the stock market into more of a casino market. So, you know, what do you think you have better odds? On the markets with leverage, where someone has like a big contract, or, you know, cash at a casino playing, I don't know, roulettes? I don't know. There is no right answer. I'm sure if there was a right answer, then someone would say, hey, you should do this every time. And this is the way, right? You get some losers, you get some winners, but you get a lot more losers than you get winners in both of these cases. Because, you know, the winners, they're just going to quietly walk away with lots of money, and the losers, they're going to tell everyone about it. So you hear a lot more about that. Generally, though, this is something that's interesting, but you also want to be careful and probably try not to use. I imagine if you're watching a YouTube short or a stream about leverage, then, you know, maybe that's not the best place to kind of learn how to use this financial instrument to your advantage, and, you know, become a millionaire. It's more just like a warning, right? This is basically like the well, I shouldn't say this isn't quite the jackass of finance, but, you know, it's things you just it's visual aids to kind of show you what to be careful about. So there's that. Okay. Now also, rate of return is not the same as interest. And this is something that I think a lot of people get confused when it comes to retirement accounts. Now, of course, might be wondering, who has a retirement account? Who retires these days? Why would anyone do that? We're all going to work till we die. Maybe. But for anyone that's hopeful out there and not completely nihilistic, or nihilistic to the point where they don't even care and they're hopeful again, then we should talk about retirement accounts and rate of return. So, rate of return. Now, this is the part where you can look at how much money something is worth, and whether you're getting value out of holding on to it or not. I think a more fun example is collectibles, because and again, this applies to stocks. This applies to maybe foreign currency exchanges. But let's use collectibles. Let's change it up a bit. Let's make it fun. I think it's fun. What's a popular collectible? Cards, right? Are cards still popular? I think cards are popular. Baseball cards used to be popular. Let's do a card. Magic the Gathering. That's popular. Alright. Let me do a squiggle. Let me do some symbols. And let me do like a paragraph of text down here. Let's draw a monster. Okay, so there's our collectible, right? The super rare card. Maybe what's a long time ago? Let's try 2000. Let's stick with even numbers, that things that ends with 0. So maybe in the year 2000, it cost. Actually, I should probably put these in front. Year 2000. The value of it was, let's say, $1, right? This looks like a common card. Who would expect it? It's a bargain bin deal, right? And so it's a card. No one thinks it's really worth that much. They put in there. It has edges frayed, whatever, right? And let's say you buy it. Hey, I have this card. I thought this art looks cool. I like it. It's nice. And then you hold on to it for decades and decades, and now it's the year 2025. And you're digging through your old shoebox and you're looking at your card and you think, wow, this is a classic. This non-specific card game was a real hit. Boy, I miss it. I'm gonna take a look at it. And but I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in my garage. I'll just look it up online. I know I have it somewhere. And then you look it up. And then the value goes to like a penny. And you think, huh, I remember paying $1 for this. Why is this so cheap? And maybe it came out that, you know, at the time, there was power creep, right? Or maybe there's a lot of cards that came out later that look like this, and it's now generic, and oh, my head, my head's in the way. Okay. I hope this is out of the way. Yeah, it should be fine. Right? Yeah. Okay. So then we're looking at this and we realize, oh, this thing has less value than it did before. At least back then for $1 I could buy some candy, but now I can't even use this penny. Oh wait, it should be a penny. Whoopsie daisy. Now I can't use this card that costs like a penny to buy like a, I don't know, anything. Not even a Jawbreaker. Well, that's unfortunate. That can happen. What can also happen is maybe you have the same card and you look at other kind of factors where maybe you looked on the wrong site, right? Maybe you think, oh yeah, this thing's only worth a penny. Like, no one pays for it. It's not a big deal. And then you wait another year. And it's the year 2026. And you go to a shop and you think, alright, I'm going to sell this card. It's worth nothing. I'll just bundle it with the rest of the others. And then the guy looks at this card and is like, what? How'd you get this? This is a super rare card. And you're like, what are you talking about? This is nothing. This is crap. It's like worth a penny. He's like, no, this card's now worth $100. You're like, what? What happened? And suddenly this card is worth a lot of money. And, you know, I think the best case example that I know is Lion's Eye Diamond. This actually happened. Maybe not with these year time frames. But the Lion's Eye Diamond used to be a card where you would discard your entire hand. I think you'd sacrifice it, and then some other restrictions, and then you get, like, some mana, right? And for the longest time, I remember seeing that card in the bargain bin and just thinking, like, wow, this is a terrible card. No wonder it's here. Like, this is awful. Who does that, right? But then years later, I come to find out that it's actually a hit because fast mana, I guess, triumphs everything. Triumphs all stuff, and it was almost non-conditional if you play out the rest of your hand and do some other shenanigans. So then it shot up in value. So it kind of worked like this, where, you know, 1 year it was worth a penny, it was worthless, no one really cared. It was like $1 or $2, but still bad. Especially for the ones I saw that are like damaged. But then now even the worst cards are like worth a lot of money. And the reason why this happens is for something, I don't know, that's the game, right? That's just how it is. That's that maybe they do something where the power creep outshines a card, and then later on they add like a clause or change a rule or something, or the dynamics of the game change where it's all of a sudden it's really good. But the point is I want to talk about rate of return, this thing right here. Because rate of return is to specifically talk about the number value that changes. And usually, if you go to a website for collectibles like TCG Player, they'll have a chart, right? Where maybe, you know, they have like $1 here, and then 100 up here, and then like a penny, right? And so then for, you know, the year 2000, when it released, it was worth $1. And then let's go to 2025, then 2.6. Okay, and so for the longest time, it was just slowly going down and down in value. Maybe something happened where it came up in value because it started getting used again, but then it just cratered because there's power creep and it just stood there for the longest time. And then let's say, for example, near the end of the year, there's some kind of rule change and then it just shoots up in price. Yeah, charts like this for collectibles can be weird like that sometimes. So, for here, if you were to sell this $1 card at any of these low points, right here, you would have had a negative rate of return, right? This is where they would say that the value of this card, and I'm gonna keep copying. I like my little doodle, blah blah blah, doodle. At these points, then this card is like a negative 99.99% return. And sometimes they do that with, can I change the color of the font? I should be able to. Yeah, okay. And they do it like that, right? With the red text. Just to really, you know, twist the knife and to let you know that, hey, this thing that you loved and you thought was going to be worth a lot, now it's really worthless. But it's also a visual aid. And then, maybe later on, if you were to look at the rate of return over here, and you still held on to it, it was still $1, right? But now what I say was worth 100? Now it's worth $100. Then it becomes... I keep selecting the wrong tool. What is that? It's not 100%. It's not 1,000%. That is a 10,000% increase? Yeah? I think so. Plus 10,000%. Sure, why not? I could be a little inaccurate here with the math. But I really only want to try to be like super accurate if I'm actually helping someone with a homework example here. I'm kind of ballparking it. Alright, so this rate of return right here. Again, for this whole period you hold it for $1, but if you sold at any point then it becomes negative 99.99%. But for the rate of return where if you hold on to this $1 card and you sell it at a later point, that suddenly the value skyrockets, then you get up to a 10,000% increase. And this is what usually things like retirement accounts do, where maybe you're buying some stock or some thing that is worth a set amount when you buy it. And then it can either go up or it can go down. And if you have negative rate of return, that's when people talk about the market crashing. You still have the thing. You still own the card. It's still in your hand. You're not like losing money by holding it in your hand. It's not like it's on fire and then you lost the physical card. It just, the value in which other people would buy it from you has cratered in this first example. Similarly, when you have the, you know, $1 card in your hand and then you hold it until 2026, and now it's worth 10,000% increase, it's now worth $100, right? You don't have $100. You have the card in your hand. Same as the other example, it's physically there, right? You haven't sold it to anyone yet, it's just what people are generally willing to buy it for. And rate of return is all about this, where it's just this is the valuation of the thing, not the actual number of the thing. And that's different from something like interest, where if you have money, that would increase the actual number of money that you have or lose. This, you don't actually lose the physical object, it just depends on who you can sell it to. And again, both of these can be tricky, right? Because something that rate of return usually doesn't cover is who and how you're going to sell this. If you have a $1 card and it's worth a penny, you know, are you going to ship it to someone who maybe wants to buy it from across the country where the shipping is going to way eclipse the cost of getting that 1 penny for the card? Probably not. You might just hold on to it, right? And even if the card's worth $100, you know, that's just how much it's worth. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to pay for it. If it's an obscure game or if it's some kind of, you know, collectible that no one really collects and maybe there's only like 1 or 2 in the world, and they might have already have one, right? Maybe even in a better condition. Maybe they'll say, yeah, the one that I have was worth $100, and that's why everyone thinks it's worth $100, but that doesn't mean I'm going to buy yours for $100. So you don't have the physical money, but you have the rate of return where it's at least $100. So that's kind of the tricky thing about this. And again, that's more specifically for collectibles and rate of returns. If you have something that like is more easily sold, like maybe a stock that you could sell to an exchange or just to a market, whereas this is something that you have to kind of almost directly sell to a person, then that's a kind of the thing. Now, rate of return doesn't always mean just the valuation of the collectible or the thing that you're holding. It could also talk about the process in which you get it. So let's say, for example, if you make a collectible. I don't know how, right? Alright, this is a bad example. Don't do this. Let's say you counterfeit. Let's say you counterfeit $1 cards. Don't do it. Please don't. But if you did, then you would need to calculate, okay, how much does the printer cost? Right? Printer. How much does the ink cost? And again, this is a theoretical example, not actual advice. This was never financial advice. It's definitely not now. How much the paper costs. Alright, the paper sheets that you're going to use to print this thing on. And all those things together would be the dollar value. If this thing, and all these kind of add up, even though the printer's maybe just like a one-time purchase, right? But the ink and the cost of the cards in total make it so that the whole cost for making a card, I'm just going to use cost of making, because that's kind of more simpler to explain. It's a nice, easier term. Not quite accurate, but it's there. Is equal to about $2. Then the rate of return is something you'd look at where maybe, okay, it's expensive to make this card for all my materials and all the consumable things. It costs me about $2 to counterfeit this card. But this card is only worth a penny. So I'm burning money. Well, not quite. Again, you still have the physical thing, right? The counterfeit thing. And also no one would probably buy from you. But you would have like a penny, so it wouldn't matter, right? But then let's say, for example, the cost of making skyrockets up to, you know, $100. Or sorry, the cost in which people would get this card is up to $100, right? So then you think, oh wow, if I counterfeit this thing for $2 and I try to sell it for $100, I could be rich. But again, counterfeiting is bad, alright? People check cards, people obsessively look over these things. I remember a story about a friend who was looking to buy some cards on a Facebook marketplace. I guess that's a thing. I don't know. And a lady was selling cards, and you know, he kind of looked at the images, just, you know, these fuzzy phone images, and he looked at the little details and the grains of it, and he's like, yeah, you know what, hey lady, I think these cards are counterfeit. Whoever sold them to you, you know, you should probably know its real value and not accidentally sell it, because you know, these are fake. And the lady said, oh yeah, no, I know, I make these cards myself. So, you know, she was trying to make a hustle, but it was a bad idea, and she got caught, and no one's buying from her, because any collector would, of course, evaluate the value of this thing. So this is generally just a bad idea. Don't counterfeit. But the rate of return, if you could pull it off, would be massive. And so that's why people do these things, because the rate of return is so high. Okay. Now, next I could talk about, do I want to talk about dividends? I think purchasing power would be better. Oh yeah, wait, retirement accounts. Okay, so retirement accounts. Now you can't actually do this, kind of. But if you could invest into your retirement account into collectibles and let's say, okay, I want to put this much money into my retirement and it's going to be, you know, buying all these cards. You know, and years later you're going to try to retire. It could be either worth a penny or it could be worth like a lot of money. And that's kind of the big gamble, right? I wouldn't say that anyone really knows for sure. Some people think that precious metals are kind of the ultimate collectible, that they never lose value and they always go up. I'm not going to say they're wrong, but there's another aspect that to consider, and that would be purchasing power. So yes, maybe if you buy gold or silver like 20, 30, 40 years ago, and that is like the OG collectible, right? And then you try to sell it now, yes, it might be worth more dollar value. But again, purchasing power is kind of the big thing. I think gold has retained its purchasing power. If I recall, someone talked about how like a house and how much a house is worth, right? And if you were to buy a house in 1950 and now in 2025, whoopsie daisy, lost the year there. All right. I vaguely recall someone saying, oh, that's a window, that if you're to buy a house back in the 1950s, you'd be able to afford one with about 4 gold bars. And let me try to draw this. And you might not, and you might think, wow, 4 gold bars, that doesn't seem like a lot of money. It's just a bar of gold. But also, it turns out, you know, people are buying these super expensive houses. Year 2025, equivalent of basically 4 gold bars. And this is purchasing power. So purchasing power, just to reiterate, is basically how much something retains its worth and value. So maybe in the 1950s, someone could buy a house for 4 gold bars. But also, in this year, someone could also buy a house for 4 gold bars. And that's because gold has a very strong, steady purchasing power, where the value doesn't really change that much in terms of what it can actually buy. Yeah, purchasing power. Now compare that to something else, which is the dollar. Can I turn this sideways? I cannot. That is a terrible drawing of a dollar. Let me try that again. Okay. So by comparison, the purchasing power of the dollar has definitely changed. We're in maybe in the 1950 and 2025. In 1950, maybe you could buy a burger with $1. No. Let me change this. Let me make it $10. You know what? let's go to 1990. Let's make this even closer. Alright, so in the 1990s, actually let me start from the top. Let me draw a burger first, because I think this will blow someone's mind. That's a terrible looking burger. Okay, here we go. So, now unlike gold, the purchasing power of the US dollar has changed. In the 1990s, for that's a pretty good deal. And the dollar ratio was 1 to 1. You know, $10, 10 burgers. Makes sense. Whereas maybe now, in the year, if you were to have $10, and a half, just not the bottom half. And so the purchasing power has been lost on the dollar, where $10 about 35 years ago does not have the same purchasing power as $10 now. And that's huge, especially when compared to something like gold, where maybe the purchasing power of gold, where you could have 4 bars of gold and buy a house, and let's change this to 1990s even. That could work. But even now, in the year 2025, you could probably buy a house with 4 bars of gold, because the purchasing power has retained here and has not been retained here. And that's what purchasing power means in a nutshell. Okay. Shoot, I think that's all I got. Yeah, because the other space I was supposed to fill up was with buy now, pay later, but I did that whole thing last time. Now, I don't see anyone talking in the chat, and that's fine. No one has to talk if they don't want to. They can just sit, listen, and relax. But if anyone needs homework help, hey, just reach out. You could reach out today, you could reach out another time, that's fine. I think I got the word out. I did. So there we go. I'll be on for like, oh geez, I guess another 12 minutes. Wow. 12 minutes. Eeh. Alright, I'm not gonna have it be 12 minutes of dead air. So what other math money stuff could I talk about? I don't know, let's do some ratios, right? So you could say 1 gold bar. Whoops. 1 house equals 4 gold bar. Which would mean also that, you know, 1 gold bar equals 1/4 of a house. So, you know, if you and maybe 3 friends could get a gold bar each, maybe you could get a place. A silly example. Maybe not true. But, you know, that's just kind of how that works. And here, you know, this is kind of a messed up ratio where, you know, $1 equals 1 burger. Which is cool. But now it's more like, oh geez, $1 equals well, that's like 1.5, isn't it? It's not 1. I'm saying that 10 is equal to 1.5. So I think that would make it 0.1/5. Wait, no, that's 0.15. Trying to do mental math. 1.5 also equals 3 over 2. Yeah, no, I mean, it would just be like $1. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I think it'd be 15. The reason why is because you're affording 1.5 burger. And then when you shift the decimal here, you just shift the decimal here. So yeah, 0.15 of a burger. 0.15 of a burger is what $1 can get you today. And so the purchasing power has completely dropped. And that's very unfortunate. Now, what this also means is that the valuation of a burger has gone up. And burgers are now more valuable than they've ever been in history. So take that as you will. If you're a good chef, hey, that means you got value. If you're a good chef, that means that you know, your valuation has increased. In fact, compared to this, right? And this is why people might not want gold, because of something like inflation, deflation. But let's put it this way, right? Someone who deals in gold can only buy things that remain a steady price because it's purchasing power, right? So let's say, for example, if you bought $100 worth of gold, then in the 1990s, then that number would go up, right? Maybe let's relate it to burgers. Yeah, you know what? Let's do the gold to burger ratio. Let me try that one. All right. So if you invested in gold back in the day and you think, man, gold is always going to be great. It's always going to retain its purchasing power. This is an amazing investment. My goodness gracious, gold is peak. And you think, okay, you know what? I'm going to buy 1 burger's worth of gold. Or no. Not buy. What would it look like? How would I describe this? The rough idea I'm trying to come up with is that the burgers have become infinitely more valuable. Well, not infinitely. Has become substantially more valuable than gold has in this example. Because maybe back then, the burger to house ratio was different, where maybe a house, how much did a house cost back then? Let me bust out a calculator. So if you had like a $1 to 1 burger ratio, and I looked up the average price of a house prices in 1990. Do 1970. That's not it. Alright. So, a house in 1990 was roughly about $150,000. It's a lot of money. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, from the 1970s to the 1990s was actually the worst changes in price. So I guess this is kind of a deceptive. I'm not trying to be deceptive, but it's too small of a time frame, right? Because let's see. So this is 1990. A house would cost $150,000 in 1970. A house would cost $27,000. And then it looks like in the year 2000, Let me scoot these numbers up. In the year 2000, it cost $200,000. Now, rate of return again comes back because usually rate of return is presented as a percentage, right? So even though the absolute value, now if we could look at this. Oh no, even the absolute value changed significantly. Yeah, no, how do I make this more crazy? Let's say, for example, in the year let's go to year 2025. And have a house worth $500,000. I don't think we even need to go that high, do we? No, I can just go like 400,000. Okay, here's what I'm trying to demonstrate. So, for value, actual ACTU, actual absolute value, whatever. Now, the time frames in which a house might have increased in costs. And let's go from 70 to 90, and then 90 to 25. And here's a funny thing about math and numbers. The actual value increase from that first 1970 average price market to 1990 market, and let me bust out a calculator because I'm lazy, is about $123,000, which is a lot. That's a lot of money. These are numbers that are massive. And then also from the 90s to the aughts, or I guess 25s. That's not the aughts. Wait, is that a... Okay, that's a 20-year time frame. This is a longer time frame, so I know it's not perfectly balanced, right? The time frames are different lengths for each. Fine. I could get like a 1945 house compared to the 90s. Or would it be 55? Anyways. And then the value is at least know this much. Maybe that much? Yeah. So the absolute value here would seem like it increases a lot, right? Wow. $250,000 is way more than 123. So that means that, of course, you know, you're losing more money in this time frame than you are here, right? That seems terrible. But when you look at rate of return, it tells a different story. Wherein you go from, let's say, I don't know. Let me try something really quick. And that's the percentage. Okay, there it is. Alright, so what I would do is I would take the larger number divided by the smaller number. So 150,000 divided by 27,000. Here, it is a 500%, so for the same time frame. Jesus. A 500... Oh, wait a minute. Would it also... No, I think it'd be like this. 555% increase. Whereas this value, when it goes from 150,000 to 400,000, probably could have just not included all these extra zeros. It's actually only a 267% increase. Because the percentage to get from this middling number, the 1990s, to the higher number, may have increased in actual value, actual dollars, but the percentage increase was much smaller than the initial bump up to that middling number, from 27,000 to 150,000. So it is this rate that is the most devastating. Where a lot of people would get priced out of houses because the rate in which it increased was such a gigantic amount. And here, it's still also bad. But percentage-wise, it's less bad. Actual value-wise, it's worse. Percentage-wise, it isn't. And if you have something that retains value, like purchasing power of gold, then it's really the percentages that matter more to you and not the actual value. Well, actually, let me think. Yeah. Because if the rate goes up for maybe one good, then it might go up for all the goods as a percentage. So maybe also during this time period, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that gold value also probably shot up as well. Just a hunch. And it probably increased more as a percentage here than it did here. But maybe from the 1990s to 2025, it increased more in actual value, but less as a percentage. It did for houses, maybe it did for other commodities. I'm not entirely sure. I cannot promise you that. But that's where you gotta kind of pay attention to all these numbers and see how they change, because we don't trade in houses, we don't trade in gold, we don't get paid in burgers, we get paid in dollars. And so for the dollar amount, you might think, ah, yeah, things are terrible now. But they were also terrible back then too. Yeah. So things are just kind of expensive. But yeah, there we go. Oh, it's time. Okay. Well, thank you for coming by. Thank you for watching me talk about money and stuff. And yeah, if you ever want to come by for tutoring, for like actual math homework that you're going to be graded on, and not just general financial advice. That's not financial advice, because I'm not a financial advisor. Yeah, please feel free to come by. And thank you very much for everyone who's coming or seen the VOD. I appreciate you all. Alright, have a good night.